Since humans first looked to the sky, we have wondered if there was other life out there. Asked the question, are we alone? Have we been visited by alien civilizations?
Our galaxy is in existence for more than 10 billion years. So in principle, if you take the life forms actually started within the last 5 billion years, there is still enough time to do this, absolutely.
Now, more and more people, ordinary people like these, are coming forward with reports of their contact with the paraphysical. Contact with something that dramatically changed their lives. Contact with UAPs, unexplained aerial phenomena, formerly called UFOs. And contact through interdimensional telepathic communication with unknown intelligences. And with, surprisingly, Bigfoot, an elusive, magical, human-like being.
They've had a weird experience like mine, where they've seen either footprints, they've had something throw something at them. You know, when they went out deer hunting, a big rock comes up and whacks the side of the tree, or they see one. And then at that point, they become obsessed. You know, and you can't blame them. They want answers. Their life changed.
When I first started, like every Bigfoot person, they want to prove Bigfoot exists. You know, partially because they've gotten some flack from a friend or a relative. I don't do it for that anymore. In fact, half the time I don't even have a camera on me. I do it for my own personal experiences. When you're out and you're having experiences, you feel like the man on the moon or the first woman on the moon.
It's a customized, personal experience for everyone. I don't think that I would have a hard time putting it in a box or compartmentalizing it. I guess you'd have to maybe call it spiritual because it's just so personal.
No longer afraid of ridicule, people are coming out of the shadows with their contact reports and have formed communities of shared experiences.
You live long enough, you've seen things that you can't explain. And I think every one of us has seen it. You know, whether we think it's something that we just imagined or we put it in the back of our minds. And I think probably like a lot of people had this phenomenon, but until you have TV and the internet, everybody can't communicate about it because most of us just put it in the back of the minds and it disappears from their reality because it isn't something, it's almost like this event that happened maybe twice or 3 times, it doesn't keep happening and there's really no point in talking because most people aren't even going to believe you.
It sort of turns your whole world upside down in what you believe to be, you know, real and not real. It's totally out of the realm of anything you've experienced in your life. It's not like anything you've thought of your whole entire life. So when you see something that does not match up with your known database in your brain as what exists, it really throws you for a loop.
And now it's happening in the UFO arena. So is it just that we've transposed this process to a technology and a language that appeals to us now? People are not talking about fairies the way people talked about some of these same things hundreds of years ago. So maybe just the clothing of the experience has changed to suit our modern age, but the process seems to remain fairly consistent throughout the ages, and it results in the same sort of thing. Transformation of consciousness, which affects the body, affects how we think, how we interact with each other, and awakening of what in spiritual terms would be called superpowers.
This possibility of transformational alien contact is being studied by serious investigators across the planet, looking for answers. Today, many of those investigators suspect that the facts and knowledge of extraterrestrial contact are being kept secret and have been kept secret by governments around the globe.
It was Elmendorf, and I was sitting there waiting at the flight ops desk to try and look at the schedule to see what an outgoing flight was that I was trying to catch. And the ops desk people were actually out loud in public discussing the previous night's UFO activity. And I was really shocked. I was like, you guys are saying this out loud? And they're like, we're not just saying it out loud, we're logging it, we're documenting it. RCO is tired of this stuff. I don't know that he wasn't forced to retire, but he was trying to document it and put it out there because he was tired of it being a secret.
The secrecy of the UFO phenomenon, if at Area 51 or anywhere else, is based on the Battelle Institute report in the 50s that was conducted by the CIA, who indicated to the CIA and to the U.S. military that we have to belittle and make fun of the people and organizations that believe in the UFOs to maintain the secrecy that we need to have with this. Because if we let this information out, there could be sociological, religious, monetary crises that would develop should people know that there is someone out in the universe that's smarter than we are.
Anybody who says secrets can't be kept is saying, well, I don't know about any, so there must not be any, which is a very self-centered and egotistical and inappropriate way of thinking about things. Secrets can be kept and are being kept all the time.
At some stage after Blue Book, the US did get a program, the infamous ATIP, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, but there is little or no exchange of information between US and UK. France, certainly not with any nation where perhaps relations aren't that good. So we certainly don't, for example, in the UK and the US, exchange information with Russia or China. But even between the US and the UK, or Germany, France, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, where there is a lot of information sharing, for example, on intelligence programs, we don't exchange UFO information.
One of the things that's happening right now is there's all these deathbed confessions going on. There's all these baby boomers who are going away, who are retired, and they don't want to take these secrets to their grave. So we're learning a whole bunch of stuff these days by people who were sworn to secrecy, but are finally deciding, I'm tired of keeping this secret, and I don't understand why this needs to be a secret that's kept from humanity.
Now, instead of looking to distant solar systems for extraterrestrial life, many experts are coming to believe, through experience and contact reports, that aliens are already here observing us. This is not new. What is new for mainstream science is a high probability that aliens are with us in the form of Bigfoot. And they must be considered smarter than we are.
The first time someone sees Bigfoot run across the road, they see an animal, an undiscovered ape. After investigating the topic for decades, if they stay with it, their thinking is probably going to evolve. Certainly did for me.
There is a strong case to be made that Bigfoot, or as they are called by native people, Sasquatch, are in fact non-human intelligent alien beings.
What really interests me are some of the weirder aspects of the Bigfoot phenomenon, where people have claimed to have seen these creatures and they've sort of vanished in a flash of light, or they've literally just almost dissolved, or they've been seen in conjunction with strange little balls of light flitting around the woods, sort of the size of tennis balls, maybe sometimes the size of a basketball, and the creatures have been seen in almost exactly the same location and the same time. But then you have other cases where people have claimed to have seen sort of huge objects, flying saucers, UFOs, in the areas. For example, in 1973 in Pennsylvania, there was a huge wave of Bigfoot/UFO activity throughout Pennsylvania, predominantly in like the forested areas. And Stan Gordon, a researcher who's still in the field today, did a lot of really good research into that. And, you know, in some of those cases, they weren't talking about blurry lights, or they were talking fuzzy lights. They were talking about solid craft of some sort of kind.
In addition to the Pennsylvania sightings of UFOs and Bigfoot together, the other place that awakened the world to a possible connection between the two phenomena was around the small town situated on the Hickory Apache Reservation on the New Mexico-Colorado border. Dulce, New Mexico is part of the San Luis Valley, an extensive valley nestled between two mountain ranges extending from the Great Sand Dunes National Park in southern Colorado to the Taos Plateau in New Mexico. In addition to its extraordinary beauty, the valley is known as one of the nation's premier hotspots for paranormal phenomena and events. Events ranging from haunted hotels, to black helicopters, to cattle mutilations, to the well-documented Aztec, New Mexico UFO crash, to interdimensional portals and vortexes, to local Native American legends of skinwalkers, and, of course, to Bigfoot and unidentified aerial phenomena sightings. A focal point for paranormal activity in the valley is the UFO Watchtower north of Hooper, Colorado. It is run by Judy Mezzeline, a local cattle rancher. She is well aware of the arguments that major paraphysical occurrences are clustered together geographically. In her case, two vortexes next to the Watchtower, where people bring offerings to a supposed gateway to a higher dimension.
And this garden back here, it's got two large vortexes. And it's amazing how people can pick up the energy from those vortexes. And others, when they see a UFO, then their body reacts differently. And they say that they are just filled with lots of love. So that's not bad. I know that there is definitely something going on. Let's face it, this cosmos is too dang big for there not to be life someplace else. And I feel that that life is in a different dimension. They can pop in and out at will.
Not long ago, the military came to the Watchtower.
I had the Navy come visit me here a couple years ago. And they spent a couple of hours here. And I don't know why. I just know they came. So they sent me their report. And it goes on and on and on, and then at the end it says, non-human intelligence, not from this world. That's what is said at the end of the report. And this is the Navy, you know?
Although the Watchtower has all the characteristics of a paraphysical hotspot, it can easily be dismissed as a tourist trap. This is not the case with what's being going on at Dulce, New Mexico.
I have seen strange things in this community. I did stop a van one night about 2 o'clock in the morning. I remember it was New Mexico plates. There was a cage in the back of the van. And there was two military personnel. One was driving, one was on the passenger side. And both of them were heavily armed. And these guys were special op guys. They weren't regular military soldiers. I could tell they were special ops. And all they told me was just let it go, let us go, don't worry about it. And that's what I did. I just walked away. I just let them go, and I never talked about it until recently. I told some people.
Its modern paranormal history dates back to the early 1980s, when Paul Benowitz, a businessman, believed he had located a secret joint alien and military facility that he called Dulce Base, located deep in the Archuleta Mountain, overlooking the city. By 1982, Benowitz began to spread his ideas regarding Dulce Base to others in the ufology community. In 1988, Benowitz wrote a paper entitled Project Beta. Since then, reports of all manner of paraphysical activity, including Bigfoot and UFO sightings, and surprisingly, constant cases of unusual military presence, continue to this day. If you go to the reservation, nearly everybody has stories of their own paranormal contact experience. However, ask them to go on camera, the typical response is politely, no way. One exception is a full-blooded Apache, Dory Vigil, a Bigfoot and alien investigator. He believes Bigfoot and aliens are connected.
Even little kids, once in a while, they'll be running around as today and they'll see something in the air, or sometimes they go to the river or something, or the lake, and they hear that noise of some kind of, or a knocking, some kind of duck, 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 duck. And sometimes the light, all of a sudden, like over here, this other side, there's orbs out there. You can go there about maybe 10 to 11 in the nighttime. You just park there, and here comes the orbs, big old orbs about this big. And it's about, maybe it goes to probably around this big right here. And nothing but the light shines all the way around, but it stops to a certain point. And nothing that, and it flies around, it goes around the vehicles and everything that heads off. And nothing that was this one episode, and there's other episodes where other people seen the same thing. So we marked it off over there where you can actually go and look at it, out of towners. But we don't recommend for them to go out of town, out of the reservation without a tribal member.
Dulce is surrounded by rugged forested mountains, well known as Bigfoot habitat.
Just like last week, in fact, about maybe 4 days, 5 days ago, yeah, there's a lake here called Stone Lake. And this Stone Lake right there on the east side right there, I have a witness too. I have a witness that was with me that time, and after that we saw Bigfoot from across the lake. And it was walking, a real big giant one, a real big old black something right there. And my girlfriend style and everything, look at it, look at it, look at it. I said, are you serious? Are you serious? So all of a sudden after that says, yeah, I see it, I see it. I see it all the time. So next following day, we went back over there before it rained, and we got footprints and stuff. I got pictures of footprints from over there, and even where it sat down. The footprints were pretty decent size and everything and all that. And
relatives of Dory, Tim Anderson, a former reservation policeman, and his son, Francisco, are determined to make contact with Bigfoot. They have identified a couple of locations in the high mountains on the reservation where Bigfoot occasionally makes their presence known. Tim and Francisco agreed to take us to one of these places. Unlike the typical Bigfoot hunters, these men are well armed.
A medicine man one time, he told me that a lot of people don't believe it, but we live in a parallel world, he said. He said there's a parallel world next to us, and he said the Bigfoot lives in the other world, and sometime it comes over. So when he's losing his track, he goes back to the other side. I have never seen it, but I have smelled it. We tracked it. It threw objects at us. And we just can't explain how those things happen. You just feel like something's watching you, something's out there looking at you. And you just get an eerie feeling like there's something watching you, looking at you.
My first experience that I had was back in the summer of 2005 when I was going into 6th grade, I think. I knew there was like a smell in the area. That was just strange. I never smelled that before. And then my dad, I just kind of ignored it. And then I started loading the wood into the back of the bed of the truck, and my dad finally turned off the chainsaw and looked towards me, and he was like, you notice that smell? And I kind of like looked at him. I was like, yeah. I was just a kid and I never smelled that before. And I was like, I don't know what it smells like. Then I was asking him about the smell, and he told me it smelled like an old billy goat, which I heard before from my uncle Brian Vigil. He told me that Bigfoot might have a smell of a billy goat or something. And right when my dad told me that, I kind of like dropped the log, and then I was just looking around, and then all of a sudden that feeling came of something watching you. And then I think that was probably one of the creepiest sightings we had. Well, my first time.
Often on a Bigfoot hunt, investigators look for signs of nature out of place, unusual bent trees, tree trunks stacked, or, on occasion, a footprint.
I don't know, this might be one.
On an earlier trip to this area, Tim made a cast of a Bigfoot footprint.
This one here, we found in Lahara one day. I showed it to some other people. One guy told me it's a juvenile Bigfoot.
Almost always when cameras are present, nothing happens except for that felt sense of being watched. In a playful way, it's as if Sasquatch doesn't want to be photographed. It's as if they're having fun with us. And of course, everybody on the reservation has seen strange aerial phenomena.
I've seen a few things, objects flying in the sky that disappear. And one night I was parking on the point up here, and this bright light just lit up the whole valley and flew up one of the canyons and disappeared. So that was like 3 o'clock in the morning. Then just a few weeks ago, me and my son-in-law were out behind the correction center here, and we saw a bright light up, and that disappeared. I actually videoed it. I videoed that light.
Later that day, Tim and Francisco took us to an overlook of Archuleta Mesa, where Tim captured on his cell phone that aerial phenomenon light that lit up the valley.
Do people report a lot of strange lights and that kind of thing over here?
Yeah, they do. A lot of people want to talk about it. There's a lot of military activity sometimes. You got C-130s or that fly real low, the black helicopters that come in here. It's weird. I don't know if there really is a base or why there's so much military activity.
If there is an alien base here, it certainly must be one of the best kept secrets of all time.
We need to remember that what's important about flying saucers to many people on this planet is their technology. They would make wonderful weapons delivery and defense systems. The first country to be able to duplicate them is going to rule the planet, because they can fly circles around anything we got flying. We're primitive. And so one can understand that the governments of the world do not want to tell their people that there are alien visitors here. First, it would be admitting we're not the center of the universe. We're not the all-powerful, all-knowing, etc. Second, no government wants its citizens to owe their allegiance to the planet as opposed to that government.
Interestingly, the beginning of the modern idea of an alien presence here on Earth started not that far from Archuleta Mesa, not far from the first nuclear test site. It started just outside of Roswell, New Mexico, where something crashed. Clifford Clift, Executive Director Emeritus, has been a longtime member of MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, and has thoroughly investigated what happened on that fateful evening over 72 years ago.
July 7th, 1947, or approximate date thereof, Brazil, a rancher that was northwest of Roswell, out looking for his sheep the next morning after a severe thunderstorm, discovered this debris in the field. And it wasn't something that he had seen before. Having lived in the desert like that, he had seen numerous weather balloons that the military had sent up. This objects that he saw on the ground were not of the weather balloon type that he had seen. So he went to town and talked to the sheriff about having discovered some objects in the field out by his ranch, and he didn't think that they looked like anything that he'd ever seen before. They might be something more than debris from a weather balloon. The sheriff, Wilcox, then told him to go to the Air Force Base, which he did, And then Jesse Marcel Sr. went out with another gentleman to the site and discovered that it was something maybe a little bit more than what he thought. On the way back to town that night, very late at night, he stopped at his house, this is Jesse Marcel Sr., and showed it to his wife and son and told them that this was extraterrestrial. Well, the Air Force came out with their first, in 1947, said that they had captured a flying disc. And that went out all over the radio stations and the press, everybody got it. All over the world were calling the local Roswell newspaper and the sheriff's department to find out what was going on. It became apparent that something did go on, but the next day they reversed their statement and said it was a weather balloon. And then they showed a picture of a weather balloon. This is a strange change of events from a flying saucer to a weather balloon.
Whatever was found in the Roswell debris field, material from an alien spacecraft, or simple fragments of a military weather balloon, were gathered up by the military and flown to Fort Worth, Texas. Accompanying the objects was Major Jesse A. Marcel of the 509th Bomb Group Intelligence Office, one of the original officers to actually see the objects as they were found on the ranch. In fact, he helped gather them up. So of all the people involved in the Roswell incident, he would be the one who would know if there was a government cover-up or not. In 1978, nuclear physicist and author Stanton T. Friedman interviewed Jesse Marcel.
3/4 of a mile long and several hundred feet wide. So we proceeded to pick up the parts, that it was not a weather balloon, nor an aircraft, nor a missile. It was something else, which we didn't know what it was.
But the most interesting story to emerge is that Roswell was not actually the crash site, but the place where the alien craft ricocheted to the eventual crash site. A site not far from Socorro, New Mexico, and the place where the National Science Foundation operates a vast network of radio telescopes today.
The debris field was quite wide and quite long at Roswell, according to Brazel and his son. So the sheep wouldn't walk across it, they'd walk around it. The object, according to Stanton Friedman, may have ricocheted there and landed at another place. And at that point, that's where the object impaled itself in the side of a hill. And apparently there was 3 to 5, depending on who's talking, alien beings, 2 of which were dead and 1 was alive. There was an archaeology group that were studying the terrain in that area. They came across this before the military got to it, and they were ordered to be shut up. And as MUFON, we have archival files, and we have letters from these archaeologists that were at the scene of this, depicting what they had seen. And they did say that there were small people there on the ground, and the craft was somewhat delta shape, wasn't exactly round, but it was torn open, and there was destruction from the crash.
After all these years, the unsettled and controversial nature of the Roswell event is still the focal point of humankind's biggest unsolved mystery. Are we alone in the universe? 2 things happened as a result of the Roswell incident.
And of course, what have we seen ever since? An escalation of this phenomenon. Multiple reports, credible reports, UFOs seen by pilots, police officers, military personnel, tracked on radar, performing speeds and maneuvers that seem way in excess of anything we have. And governments all around the world have programs to research and investigate this.
At the same time, mainstream scientists began cataloging stars and planets in our galaxy, and in galaxies beyond. and asking what the possibility is that life or non-human intelligence exists out there. In particular, astronomers looking at our galaxy attempted to predict how many possible sophisticated civilizations might have and are still existing in our Milky Way. The famous Drake equation set forth by astrophysicist Frank Drake, the father of SETI science, predicted around 8,000 such civilizations should exist. Consequently, the SETI Institute was established and began searching for extraterrestrial radio waves sent from distant civilizations.
Frank talked about maybe 8,000 planets in the galaxy. The latest notion is that when you start looking at stars, and now we can actually observe planets around other stars. It's very neat science that we can detect the presence of planets out there. It looks like there's 1.6 planets per star. If you take hundreds of planets, that's the average you get out of it. That means in our galaxy, we got over 100 billion planets. That changes the picture from 6,000 or 8,000, I think. There's a big difference. So just as we thought, we're the center of God's creation, if I can put it that way, we now realize that's absurd, that we're not.
Around the same time, the great Italian-American physicist Enrico Fermi was having lunch with fellow physicists at Los Alamos when the conversation turned to a flood of recent UFO sightings all over the United States. During the discussion, Fermi supposedly asked his famous question, "Where indeed is everybody? Where are the extraterrestrials? Especially since alien life may have had a 500 million year jump on us here on Earth. And it is now estimated there are perhaps as many as 11 billion inhabitable planets in our galaxy." The question, "Where are they?" became known as Fermi's Paradox.
The famous Italian physicist Enrico Fermi once said that if there were extraterrestrial civilizations, why don't we see them? Why they have not visited us yet? And the question is very, very important, because you can think of a civilization that has developed interstellar travel, but they don't have to really go on their own, that is bodily, to another planet, beyond their planet actually. They can actually make robots which will go to another extrasolar planet and extract material from the planet and make a lot of other self-replicating robots which will go on their way to more planets, and this particular process or method can go on ad infinitum. In that way, actually, a very intelligent life form or civilization can colonize a large fraction of our galaxy within a very short period of time. And the machines, the self-replicating machines, were first actually described by von Neumann. So in principle, we are not very far from the day when we can actually send out self-replicating robots into the nearest star system. There is a planet which has already been discovered in our nearest star system, Alpha Centauri, and people are thinking about actually sending spacecraft, albeit very small ones, to those to Alpha Centauri. So if we can already think about that, then it is not unreasonable to assume that there are intelligent civilizations in the galaxy. If there are intelligent civilizations in the galaxy, then they would be thinking about this also. And some of these von Neumann machines would be already here on Earth.
In contrast to the SETI movement, which has not a bit of evidence at all to say that anybody is sending signals here, the ufological movement says we have enormous amounts of evidence that aliens are visiting. We can't answer the questions of what do they want, why are they here, how do they operate.
In 1952, Project Blue Book was established by the United States Air Force to answer these questions. Aided in its investigations by astrophysicist Dr. Alan Hynek, to this day, Project Blue Book has been controversial. Here's a montage of declassified images from Project Blue Book. The project was headquartered at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, but is no longer receiving, documenting, or investigating UFO reports. Many claim the project was a massive cover-up of evidence of alien encounters. Major General John A. Sanford speaks.
However, there have been a certain percentage of this volume of reports that have been made by credible observers of relatively incredible things. It is this group of observations that we now are attempting to resolve. Our basic difficulty in dealing with these is that there is no measurement of them that makes it possible for us to put them in any pattern that would be profitable for a deliberate, custom sort of analysis to take the next step. We have, as of date, come to only one firm conclusion with respect to this remaining percentage, and that is that it does not contain any pattern of purpose or of consistency that we can relate with to any conceivable threat to the United States.
Project Blue Book Special Report 14. Two important things about it. It was done in the mid-50s. They looked at 3,201 sightings, an Air Force study. And they found there's all kinds of charts, tables, graphs, maps. It's chock full of data. And it was found that 21.5% of the cases couldn't be identified. That there were some cases that had to be listed as insufficient information. There was aircraft, balloon, astronomical, etc. But they found the better the quality of the sighting, the more likely to be unexplainable, which means that it's probably real data. They looked at a chi-square analysis, the characteristics of the unknowns versus the knowns. Did the two groups match? The chance that the unknowns are just misknowns, less than 1%. But in the press release, the report was not distributed, but a press release was given very wide distribution in the mid-50s. They said even the unknown 3% could have been identified as conventional phenomena or illusions if more complete observational data had been available. That's a complete and total lie. The unknowns weren't 3%. Their own tables showed 21.5%. So 3 is not, or 21.5 is not 3 rounded off by any stretch of the imagination. So it was a flat-out lie, and that set the tone for the next 70 years.
Perhaps one of the most remarkable cases of an unexplained aerial phenomena occurred on a clear night over Phoenix, Arizona.
The Phoenix lights happened March 13th, 1997, with an object being reported northwest of Phoenix up in the Prescott Valley area. Lights, very bright lights. The object appeared to have been bigger than any aircraft that the United States or Russia or any other country could get up in the air and fly at 100 miles an hour, which is what it was clocked at. It was viewed by thousands of people, numerous pictures and videos. We at MUFON have evaluated those pictures with our photo analysis, and we can't find anything wrong with the pictures. It appears that many people saw a transparent solid object. Others saw a solid object. One report of a dentist traveling along the highway from Phoenix to Tucson said that he could look out the window of his car on the driver's side and see one wing tip, and look out the window of the other side, the passenger side, and see the other wing tip. That's a pretty large craft. Everybody did report that it was 5 huge lights on the bottom of this object. Transparent or solid, we don't know. The technology that they have, if this is extraterrestrial, would allow them to do that type of thing. People can see through them, they can't see through them. We don't know why that happens, but it does happen. The object was seen by air traffic controllers at the Sky Harbor Airport in Phoenix. The object was seen by commercial airline pilots that reported it.
There is no doubt that thousands of people saw something real that clear Phoenix night. But what?
The Phoenix lights, I believe, were extraterrestrial craft of some type. I have no idea why. Maybe it was time for them to show themselves to us, and maybe not.
Interestingly, the craft was described as having some interdimensional qualities, often reported during Bigfoot encounters, including semi-transparency, as if they are not quite solid or of this world. However, the most convincing alien craft contact came as a result of videos shot by American naval aircraft and released as part of the top-secret ATIP program.
We're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude.
The first video came from what is known as the 2004 USS Nimitz incident off the coast of San Diego. Fighter pilots from the USS Nimitz flying Super Hornets encountered an aerial object that was described as 40 feet long and shaped like a tic-tac.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh.
The object flying a random pattern, appearing at 80,000 feet, and then dove to 20,000 feet at incredible speed. When the American fighter plane approached the object, it suddenly came at the plane head-on, before peeling away. Although the fighter pilots were no longer able to detect the object, the radar controller at the nearby USS Princeton was able to follow the alien aircraft for a few minutes before disappearing. The next incident we know about occurred 10 years later off the east coast of the United States and is known as the USS Roosevelt incident. It is reported that many strange aerial objects, one of them like a spinning top moving against the wind, appeared almost daily from the summer of 2014 to March 2015. Navy pilots reported to their superiors that the objects had no visible engine or infrared exhaust plumes, but that they could reach 30,000 feet at hypersonic speeds. In late 2014, a Super Hornet pilot had a near collision with one of the objects, and an official mishap report was filed. Some of the encounters were captured on video, including one taken by a plane's camera in early 2015. It is unknown how many of these types of contact have happened and not been made public. By the late 1980s, another kind of alien contact captured the public imagination. People who claim physical alien abduction. People whose stories would have been dismissed as delusional a generation earlier were being interviewed by Oprah. In addition, books about alien abduction experiences such as Whitley Strieber's Communion and Bud Hopkins' Intruders were bestsellers. However, in the 21st century, reports of that kind of negative alien contact diminished and were replaced by something more interesting: a merging of alien contact with the paranormal.
There are other kinds of contact experiences going on that people associate with aliens or extraterrestrials. And for lack of a better term, I think we need to call them non-human intelligent beings, because we really don't know what they are or where they're from. They could be interdimensional, from a parallel universe, not from another world far off in space. And a lot of these contact experiences take place in what would be called a matrix reality. That is, the contactee is suddenly transported to kind of a liminal between world, which some would describe as sounding like the astral plane, which is neither here on Earth nor somewhere else like a craft per se, where they are having some sort of interaction with an intelligence, which they may or may not see. But there is telepathic communication, there is a sense of a presence. There is usually some information imparted, but we don't seem to get much evidence that these beings are specifically here to warn us, help us, enlighten us, give us technology, give us medical information. But they're here to have some sort of interaction with us that awakens something in our consciousness.
As we learn, this is often how a Bigfoot encounter is described. Described as spiritual in nature. This kind of contact has been a big part of most native cultures. Bigfoot is known in North America through ancient rock art and stories of Native American encounters. It's where the name Sasquatch, or hairy giant, got its origins. It seems that Native or First Nation people are more open to Bigfoot encounters, both in the past and even now in the present. Winona Kirk, a Lakota, had her own transformational Bigfoot encounter.
Some elders would say they're spirit, part animal. But the First Nations people, my relatives, have kind of a mystical or spiritual way of looking at all of creation. So I did talk to some elders who said, oh, you know, I had them, you know, around my camp.
Research has shown that after World War II, reports of Sasquatch encounters were growing in number. But the big change in the awareness of Bigfoot occurred in 1967, when what became known as the Patterson-Gimlin film showed the mysterious beast as it lumbered along a Northern California riverbank. Since then, not only have reports of Bigfoot encounters skyrocketed across America and the world, but also in many ways, it initiated a new era of cryptozoology researchers. In particular, Bigfoot investigators. Bigfoot investigators who begin intense searches for the big hairy beast. Cliff Barackman, acclaimed Bigfoot researcher and one of the hosts of the hit Animal Planet series, Finding Bigfoot, is one of the major proponents of Bigfoot being a living, breathing animal.
From my personal experience, I've never had anything happen, ever, that would convince me that these things are anything other than a perfectly normal species of ape or higher primate of some sort that shares a planet with us.
While working for the American Museum of Natural History in New York, Dr. Esteban Sarmiento was the go-to primatologist on evidence relating to Bigfoot.
If Bigfoot did exist, and he is a great ape, he didn't come from North America. He must have came over from Asia. And that's the other thing, too. When you look at, the First Nation, or you look at, American Indian lore, it's not an animal that lives down in, Guadalajara, in Mexico or the Caribbean. It's an animal that's really coming from the Northwest. And it has like the same distribution as other animals that came over the Bering Strait from Asia.
Because of so many reports from nearly every corner of the world, all the Bigfoot investigators agreed that there must be at least a couple thousand Bigfoot distributed across the planet. However, descriptions varied.
The appearance of a Sasquatch is somewhere between like an adult gorilla and a human being. Generally speaking, an adult male Sasquatch stands between 8 and 9 feet tall. They're very, very broad-shouldered, but maybe about 3.5, 4 feet wide at the shoulder. A lot of times they kind of narrow at the hips a little bit, very, very muscular.
They obviously have a different neck structure, a different leg structure, a different bone structure than we do.
I've heard of Sasquatches being reddish in color, black in color, gray, coyote colored, sort of like all, the fur runs the gamut, and so does the skin tone as well. I've heard of like Caucasian kind of skin tones, I've heard gray, dark black, I've heard reddish, all these things. Sasquatches have a huge genetic diversity, as would be expected of a species like that.
At the same time, numerous Bigfoot research organizations were established across North America and Europe. The granddaddy of them all is the Bigfoot Field Research Organization. Trained investigators examine and record hundreds of Bigfoot encounters every year. And of course, there are an endless parade of sketchy videos showing obscure images of Bigfoot.
Oh, there he goes.
Most are easily recognized as hoaxes. After more than 50 years of failure to capture or videotape clearly a single Bigfoot, the attitude towards what this creature is began to change. Change as contact reports were cataloged and a group of investigators noticed some patterns that pointed to not an elusive primate, but something more paranormal, something alien. something that is a non-human intelligence greater than our own.
The characteristics that are associated with the paraphysical nature of Bigfoot include telepathic communication, people who have had especially multiple close encounters, and a lot of these would be individuals who spend a lot of time in the woods, like people who are hunting, fishing, camping, or maybe they live in remote areas. They feel that they have telepathic communication with these beings and that they are intelligent, maybe even superior to human beings. And many of these messages are benign or friendly. There are people who have had more aggressive encounters where the Sasquatch is a little more hostile, and maybe it's because they feel that their territory has been intruded upon. So we have telepathy. We have what would be called as bilocation or rapid transport. And that's the ability to be here and then suddenly there without visual means of getting there. That has been described on many occasions where people will see a being like in front of them and then suddenly it's behind them and they don't see it go behind them. How did it get there? It's just suddenly there.
He was walking into a clearing which I could see. It was lit up by the sun. There was trees that were about 20 yards apart, and he was walking in between two crops of trees, pine trees, going out into a clearing. And as he walked into the clearing, there was a shimmer that began as a circle. And it came in like this, and it kept going like this. And as he kept walking, everything that was on the outside of the shimmer disappeared. And it got to the center, and it just went away. And at that point, it was gone. And I observed closely to see if there's any way that it could have shifted right or left, or if it went straight ahead, but it didn't. It was walking into the clearing, and it just vanished. And everybody got excited. We couldn't believe what we saw. It was just really a life-changing experience for me.
If a Bigfoot seems to want to be material and tangible, it seems to have the ability to do that, and then to turn itself into something intangible, as though it's going through an interdimensional doorway.
Jim Myers is typical of a Bigfoot investigator who has changed his mind about the nature of Bigfoot.
I came to the conclusion that Bigfoot's more than an ape, more than America's great ape, and probably even more than just an undiscovered species in America or around the world, actually. I think they're not categorized yet, obviously. We don't have a body, we don't have bones. There's a lot of reasons for that, I think, but probably the primary reason that led me to concluding that they're maybe even extraterrestrial in origin is the fact that they disappear in front of people. I have two personal friends that have watched a Sasquatch while they are watching it literally shrink and disappear to nothing, kind of go pixelated and be gone. And I've experienced something, and I have other friends as well who've experienced something that we would call cloaking, where there was something there, but you could see through it, but there was just something there that you couldn't actually see. I call it the Predator effect from the movie Predator. And so those two things, the cloaking and the disappearing, said to me anyway, these are my own conclusions. If Sasquatch can disappear seemingly at will, one, where did they go? Did they go cloaked and they're still there? Or did they go out of this dimension? My own opinion, and of course nobody has anything but opinions in this realm, is that they go into a different dimension.
And started looking out the windows through binoculars and just kind of scanning the beautiful scenery, and came over between these two trees, these two parallel trees, and something looked odd. And it was this kind of pixelated image, and as I drew it into more definition, it was in the shape of a Sasquatch. And I took the binoculars down to make sure that I wasn't, and it was still there. And I thought, wow, and I put them back up and down and back up. And then I thought in my head, in order for me to believe what I'm seeing, you're going to have to move. And then it moved, because it was facing full front, turned to the side, and it turned back. And I just immediately was just overwhelmed with gratitude that I got to see something like that.
Arguably, if they were just normal unknown apes, there shouldn't be any paranormal aspects at all. You know what I mean? There should not be anything that deals with animals vanishing. You know, you don't get reports from Africa of people seeing gorillas vanish or weird lights around them. You don't see like monkeys, you know, for example, things like that vanishing in the flash of an eye. So why should you see Bigfoot? The answer is you shouldn't. You should not see a creature, even if we don't know what it is. It shouldn't be vanishing. It shouldn't be seen with strange lights and UFOs in the sky. So there's got to be something that goes beyond that.
It's kind of funny. I think there's ample evidence that there are creatures that I will call Bigfoot, because I don't know what else to call them, here. Whether these are transplants from someplace else, maybe the heavy lifters for the aliens that are coming here, I don't know. I think they're part of the picture of us having to realize that we need to expand our view of ourselves, our planet, our neighborhood.
Another Bigfoot investigator who changed his mind about the primate nature of Bigfoot is Ron Moorhead. His what is called the Sierra Sounds, recorded in the California Sierra Mountains, are some of the most compelling evidence of Bigfoot's alien origin. Unearthly voices are another paranormal feature associated with Bigfoot.
When I first encountered a family of these things in the 70s, we thought they were probably just an ape out there, and we treated them as such. But they're more than that. We couldn't trick them. We tried. We couldn't get a picture. We tried. One thing we captured was their vocalizations. Which has been scientifically studied now by Dr. Carlin, a year-long study showing that there was a below, above, and in the human range, which suggests that they can mimic just about any animal out there. The amplitude is what gives them away. They're huge. These creatures are huge. It wasn't until 2008 till a cryptolinguist trained by the Navy as a cryptolinguist to transcribe foreign languages unknown, and he transcribed a complex language within these sounds. And that puts it in a whole new frame. We knew they were, when we were listening to, we knew they were talking to each other and sometimes talking to us, but until you got a professional behind you saying that, you know, no one's going to believe it. So, you know, that happened. And most recently, just very recently, a guy did a 20-minute episode on the Sierra Sounds, and he claims that he's established that in one tone, they can make 5 octaves. And if that's the case, and if I can get that corroborated by a biophysical engineer someplace, it's profound. It should be the smoking gun of Bigfoot discoveries.
Even James Bobo Fay, another of Animal Planet's Finding Bigfoot's hosts, no longer takes the series' Flesh and Blood Bigfoot line seriously anymore. He has personally experienced some of the typical paranormal features associated with Bigfoot.
Saw a blue ball of light going through the woods, and where it was going, there was crashing sounds like a Bigfoot walking. It sounded just like big bipedal long steps and crunch and breaking branches. But I didn't see it turn into a Bigfoot or anything, but it was definitely associated. And that same night, there was this weird flashing up in the trees before I saw that ball of light. There was it was like 3 or 4 big pine or fir trees, and way up like 100-something feet up near the tops, they were lit up like a strobe light, like 5 flashes really fast, but there was no discernible angle. Like, the light was all encompassing. It wasn't like one direction, so there was shadows and stuff. It was all lit up like daylight almost, but in a box. So I've seen orbs out there when I've been squatching. I was actually with Renee, who on the show is a skeptic, and she was standing right there. The whole production crew were sitting there watching these two orbs just bounce along. We measured it later, they were 70 feet from us, going walking pace. And the natives tell me that when they travel, sometimes that's how they travel in their spirit form. It's like a ball of light.
The phenomena associated with their manifestations defies natural explanation. And I think that we must turn to paraphysical or interdimensional considerations if we're going to fully understand their presence on Earth and their interactions with humans.
The conclusion many Bigfoot, alien, and paranormal investigators have come to is that in an important way these events are all part of a spectrum of alien contact experiences occurring right now on the planet. Paranormal events that are showing up in thousands of what are called hotspots found throughout the planet. Hotspots that are said to be thin to the other side or another dimension. Some, like the Shimayo Shrine in New Mexico, are places of healing and Christian spiritual realization. Some are places like Virginia's Monroe Institute, where people travel to higher planes of existence and learn remote viewing. Others, like Stonehenge, have long-standing sacred significance for indigenous cultures and are often mentioned in connection with ancient alien contact. Others are places where geophysical and energetic anomalies can be detected and felt. One such hotspot is the Montana Vortex just outside Glacier National Park, identified by the indigenous tribes of the area as a sacred place of healing. It was turned into the House of Mystery, a tourist attraction in 1970. Then in 2014, longtime Bigfoot researcher Joe Hauser bought the property as an opportunity to explore the paranormal. Paranormal that included strange photographic effects, the sudden appearance of stick glyphs, the presence of orbs, unexplained aerial phenomena emerging from Columbia Mountain, and a resident Bigfoot whose arm was mysteriously captured on a tourist's cell phone photograph. The renovated facility and grounds are open to guided tours during the summer season. Joe showed us some of the rather unusual gravitational and visual effects the place is known for.
I'm just going to be a point of reference in the center. I'm not going to change. You're the show now. You're looking pretty tall there. Give me an eyeball here. Pretty tall there. Change sides. Go all the way to the end of the platform. So you're back there by the rock wall. No, I think you shrunk over there, didn't you? Instantaneously from one side of the energy field to the other. Come on back this way. Walk real slowly. Watch her grow. She goes right in front of me. Just like that. You grew right back up again.
Walk around the back.
Yeah, go the back too. Same thing. And just like that, you shrunk. Yeah. You got a marble with you by chance?
I do.
Just in case my level wasn't on the level. Why don't you put a marble down there anywhere you want to put it. You can even move it around if you'd like. And if this platform wasn't level, we'd have to have about 3 or 4 inches difference there. That marble would probably take off and roll somewhere. What do you guys think? Pretty level?
The Hausers have located on the property at least 5 what are called vortexes.
Well, we found the center, spiral lines, we found straight lines, and then we found these whirlpools. And the whirlpools get bigger the further they go out. And they actually match up to those mathematical points that Fibonacci figured out in the 12th century, still holds true today.
Vortex spirals that can produce disruption or distortions in the Earth's geomagnetic field, and perhaps the bending of locally generated electromagnetic and electrical fields. This kind of bending could produce some unusual phenomena. Phenomena that include visual distortions, cloaking in many of the paranormal events associated with Bigfoot contacts, as well as unusual personal feelings and sometimes healings. Healings that occur particularly in the big vortex.
It's always a good calm energy in there. We built a labyrinth in there. It's kind of a meditation healing walk. These vortexes, because they are magnetic in nature, have a really good healing quality.
Then there's the House of Mystery, built around one of the smaller vortexes. Inside, it exhibits rather strange gravitational effects, as demonstrated by Joe Hauser.
The house is tilted at 18 degrees on purpose so we can come inside and have a good time. That's only about a 4 and 12 pitch, so as a carpenter we could easily walk around on a roof a lot steeper than this and not constantly get pushed downhill. But here's what's going to happen. I'm just going to demonstrate everything for you really quickly, and then you guys can play around with it a little bit yourself. This platform right here is level. People want to know what the house would be like if it's level. Here's your chance to find out. When you stand on it, most of us look at our feet. When you raise your head, you say, I'm not standing straight. I'm leaning forward a couple bubbles off center. You'll do the same. You guys try to stand up straight on here. You can't. The energy will push you over backwards. But once you get on there, give it a try. Just lean back. You'll know exactly when you're 90 degrees because you'll feel it. It rocks you back on your heels, lifts your toes up, just like it wants to toss you through the window. So even if the house was level, we'd have to lean in the fill a little bit.
While the unusual vortex effects are interesting, it is the reports of Bigfoot, unexplained aerial phenomena, and orbs that make it a paranormal hotspot. As darkness set in, we were hoping to film the presence of orbs.
Because they're out of our visual light spectrum, they're probably in the infrared section of the light spectrum, we don't see them. Then there's some people believe that orbs are souls. Many of the photos we see here have faces in them that almost like you're looking at a human face. Some of them have animal faces. And then some of them appear to be almost like visitors from another dimension. They're like a drone. They fly around, they have intelligence, they move around people, they circle people, they avoid trees, and it's like they're being controlled from somewhere else, or they have some sort of intelligence that they can move around.
As Hauser and his wife Tammy snapped pictures with their cameras, we began filming them in the grounds with our infrared night vision turned on. Perhaps no other paranormal phenomena is more closely associated with Bigfoot than orbs. While we had no luck capturing orbs, the Hausers were more successful.
Few right there. A lot more. And then a whole bunch right there. Not any big ones though.
Tammy got something on her camera.
So these are the first pictures, and then that, you see that cloudiness?
Yeah.
It's almost like they're starting to manifest the red orbs. See that big red orb up there? See that giant one?
By far the most interesting results occurred at the end of our filming in a sequence of pictures, with us in the frame, taken within a second according to the camera timestamp.
There's 2 or 3 of them with them in there, and then there's some without.
Oh yeah, they're here strong.
We could detect no trickery in the sequence of images. Next, we turned our attention to Columbia Mountain, where many sightings of UAPs have occurred. But on this night, nothing happened. But earlier, something remarkable happened. While in the Mystery House, we took a number of readings with the usual paranormal detection devices. There were no results out of the norm, except that the gamma radiation readings inside the House of Mystery were 30 clicks per minute, compared to outside's 20 clicks per minute. But what about the resident Bigfoot that Joe claims to have regular contact with? He talked about him in the Mystery House.
He's big. He's probably about 7.5 foot tall. Big shoulders, narrow waist. He's would be a sub-adult now. He's a young guy still, probably maybe 20 plus years old. But when he...
Where the footage you got was captured?
Yeah, in here, yeah. And He's in here, we're pretty sure, during the summer. Sometimes I'll bring a chair up and you can hear like a 800-pound person walking across in here and there's nobody in here. Yeah, and or he'll, as you come in, you'll hear him walk out like he's already in here. But he likes this area over here. Kind of like he can just stand there and eyeball everybody that comes in and stuff like that.
As he's talking about his resident Bigfoot, something startling moves into the frame.
As you come in, you'll hear him walk out like he's already in here.
A fairy moth-like creature appears for a little over 3 seconds. Here it is in slow motion. Inexplicably, it's the brightest thing in the frame, as if self-illuminating. Of course, one of the most reported capabilities of Bigfoot is their ability to shapeshift, to morph into multiple forms and orbs. There is a bit of irony here in that this giant creature is perhaps showing itself as a tiny fairy-like being. It's as if they have a sense of humor.
Sense of humor is one indication of higher intelligence. The more you study the Sasquatch as an entity, the more you start to see sense of humor being thrown back at you with the games and tricks that they play.
Tom Powell is one of the early Bigfoot investigators who recognized Bigfoot's alien paranormal nature. He thinks because we were able to capture something on video that whatever they are aware of what we are doing in this documentary and approve. So it was natural that we would ask him to lead us on a visit to one of the new paranormal hotspots. A hotspot dubbed the Owl Moon Lab by Bigfoot investigator Tobe Johnson. It's just outside of Eugene, Oregon, where multiple paranormal, Bigfoot, and alien phenomena are occurring regularly. We wanted to understand why.
We're going to head out to what we call the Owl Moon Lab. It got that name for a reason. I can explain that when we get there. It's a parcel of property out in Cottage Grove, not too far from where the London tracks were.
On February 12, 2012, 122 prints of a possible Bigfoot were found by Tobe Johnson south of Eugene, Oregon. Accessed by London Road, a road that parallels Cottage Grove Lake, they became known as the London Footprints. Their origin was controversial. Either they are the best example of Bigfoot prints, or a great hoax. The flesh and blood Bigfoot community came down on the side of a hoax. But Tom Powell is not so sure.
They found not just a few more prints, but dozens of prints that went way out into the lake bed and all the way to the shore of the much reduced reservoir. So they got very excited and called up Cliff Barrickman and I up in Portland. We gathered together a bunch of plaster and came down here and cast quite a series of prints. In the end, there was approximately 130. Some of them better than others. They had all been sitting there for a few days by the time we got there, but they were still pretty well preserved because the mud was so sticky and stiff by then. So we did cast a whole bunch of footprints, and it is one of the more famous footprint finds of late for a couple of reasons. Number one, there were so many of them. And number two, they seem to indicate something about a behavior, the thing walking out on the lake bed and cruising around and then turning around and walking back. So we cast as many as we had plaster to cast, and the controversy continues. There are people, as always, who insist that they're fakes, and then there's others who dispute that. I'm convinced that they're genuine footprints.
The Owl Moon Lab, a few miles away from the footprints, turns out to be a property and home owned by Daryl and his wife, transplants from California who wanted to be near their grandchildren. Surprisingly, the portal, or the origination point of the paranormal activity, is an ordinary shed.
Okay, so From here on out, Daryl's only going to be known as Daryl and Cindy because the house is actually up for sale, and we want to keep it a good sale. So this
Tom.
What's up, brother? Tom, Daryl.
Nice meeting you. Thanks for having us.
Alan.
Alan, nice to meet you.
Cameraman.
Hey.
So you can attest to the craziness here.
Yeah, like I always say, I was normal when I got here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the epicenter. If I would call this anything, this would be the Faraday cage, the transmitter, and putting a capstone on this, okay, is kind of like bottling up a fizzy soda. This seems to be where everyone wants to come for whatever reason. It's brand new. It's less than a year and a half old. All the siding was put up, new garage doors, that cement foundation was laid there. It was just gravel and lumber before and a roof. That was it.
Strange events started occurring when Tobe and Daryl cast some Bigfoot knee prints and brought them back to Daryl's place.
As soon as we brought those knees and housed them here, it seemed like a giant welcoming committee said, oh, okay, you got something, we like it, you like it, maybe we'll come visit more often.
Well, the axiom there is that when you start studying them, they start studying you. So that's a John Keel-ism that he tendered back in the 60s when he was looking into these paranormal matters, and the more he looked at it, the more he became aware that he was being observed or scrutinized, and many a Bigfoot researcher has had that experience. They know where I live.
Yeah.
One of the most common forms of interaction with Bigfoot and other paranormal entities is called gifting. The unexpected appearance, exchange, and moving of objects such as feathers, rocks, and personal items.
The gifts here are extremely personal. They seem to not only listen to what you're saying, but understand who family members are that may have been to this property or haven't been to this property. Some of the things that have happened here are apportations, objects that appear out of nowhere or seemingly nowhere. For example, one day I came home from work. I was living right over here in the tree side in a little camper, and Daryl and I walked inside the garage here to download some audio from the evening prior, and I walked back out. I looked at my camper, and there was something sparkly sitting on top of the camper awning. Yes, and it was gold. And I thought, well, what the heck? I just looked at the camper. I know it wasn't there. It's up, a good 8 feet, a gold shiny object. Well, we go, this by now is kind of a routine of bringing things off this camper awning when we turn our back. But recently, Cindy said, bring us a bag of gold, bring us some gold. So when I see gold sitting on top of there, I'm like, is it gold? Well, they got a sense of humor. And so you bring it down, you get it, and inside there, no. It's an old rifle casing from the 1800s.
Oh.
I don't know if you remember the old rifle casing.
It's an old Peters
Peters
rifle casing from the 1800s.
Just sitting right up there on top of it. So that's the kind of sense of humor that they have. Bring us a bag of money. We'll leave a bag with 3 blackberries hanging on that tree there. How's that? That's your bag of money. Cindy has heart surgery, his wife. They bring her a little glass heart and set it by the hummingbird feeder. So this was our rock setup here, and one of the things that we would do, actually only recently after we found out that this was a thing that people were doing, is we would spell things out with letters. One of the major things that happened here was only recently where I spelled out in letters here, thank you for gifts. 3 days later, actually I think after Henry Franzoni was here and Kirk Sigurdsson, spelled out with letters and numbers because they didn't have enough letters to spell out this word. They used numbers. Underneath, thank you for gifts, was spelled welcome. And they used the letter 3 to make an E and the number 4 to make a C because they ran out of letters. Now, an animal could do all this stuff, I'm aware, but we're beyond the fact that it's anything other than an animal at this point because of the fact that we have the sounds of them interacting, vocalizing, speaking. And oh, by the way, they don't walk in. When they interact with a puzzle, because we record behind this wall, they interact with the puzzle like they're hanging like Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible. They drop into existence. You hear them vocalize, huff, they do the percussive, whatever. And then they work the puzzle, and then they're gone.
People in the neighborhood constantly report many cases of an unexplained aerial phenomena. Daryl describes what he captured on his cell phone one evening.
I believe it was like a Sunday night, right when high school graduation stuff was going on. I brought my dog out about 11 at night, and right above that tree line there, I saw something that appeared to be fireworks going off. So I thought that maybe there's some kids up in the woods doing fireworks for graduation or something. As I stood there for a minute, the thing started coming this way, and it wasn't fireworks. And I tried to hold my phone as good as I could, and it just kept going all over the place. It was really hard to stay up with, but then it would just flash, look like a jellyfish or something, like flash, expand and flash, go off, vanish for a minute sometimes, and then come right back in a little different area. And then it just kept doing that, and then it got right over me, and it just went out, and it was gone. And I stood there for a while, and it never came back.
Here's the UAP enhanced and slowed down. Watch it change shape. It also has an unusual center. Much of the most significant paranormal activity here comes from Tobe and Daryl's EVPs, known by ghost hunters as electronic voice phenomena. That is, audio recordings that let you hear from spirit voices that are not picked up by the human ear. Some of these have the quality of ghosts.
We got an EVP the day of the funeral of the boy that committed suicide that grew up in this room, the prior owners. The day of his memorial, we got an EVP of a child saying, "I'm dead." We went in there to check the EVP, and we found these. These are little tiny four-fingered handprints that are infused into the bedroom door. They're chalky white handprints about twice as small as mine. These are the actual prints here, and if you can see, they're very unusual anatomically. They have hard line edges in the palm here. They're gnarled at the fingertips and kind of twisted.
Tobe invited Tom to listen to a number of the unusual sounds they have recorded in and outside the shed.
This is what this place turns into. That's right here. For 30 minutes. Not a thing moved off the counter, not a dent, not a bird shit.
Tearing the camp up at night, and in the morning there is nothing touched. That's where this place is.
Mm-hmm. You want to hear a Bigfoot sound? Okay. I don't know if it gets better than that.
That's your standard moneymaker scream.
That's from the apple orchard. That's in the backyard.
Yeah, behind here.
Here are a few other voices and sounds that have been recorded at Owl Moon Lab. As evening settled in, we, including one of Daryl's neighbors, Wren, decided to see if we could record any paranormal activity in the shed. Tobe described the setup we're going to use.
So it's as simple as putting a recording device here and a speaker outside. So everyone's going to come outside and kind of let this little portal, for lack of a better word, start to introduce itself to us in the area and some new faces. And whether or not that makes a difference, I don't know. I think it might. And then one by one, we'll send people in here to see if we can measure that on camera.
We waited outside and listened for something to happen. Finally, we heard a knock from inside the shed.
was good. Okay. Nice work. So that's kind of how you warm it up.
The time had come to send some of us into the shed and see what we could record. Nothing happened until our co-producer, Alan Margargle, went inside with his camera audio, and infrared lights. At first there was nothing, but then things started occurring.
I heard that. Nope, but I heard it.
Loud sounds coming from inside the shed.
I heard that.
With no apparent cause.
Ask it a question, Alan.
Are you there? Can you make more noise so I know you're here? I heard that little cracking. Is this your home?
Ask it if it's from another dimension.
Small crack. Why do you come here? I heard that small crack. Have you ever had stuff actually move while you were in here?
No, only heard the sound of movement, never saw anything move.
Crack sound. Loud crack sound. I don't even know what that sound was. It sounded like something trying to get in. I feel something. It got cold in here. Oh, you hear? I heard that. That's the corner right by you. That was a little noise, center wall towards you. I feel that chill again.
What's that now?
I did not hear a knock. Kind of a coldness across my whole body.
Later, Alan described the feeling of a strong presence surrounding him. It felt like something had entered the shed. Fortunately, we were able to verify to some degree the peculiar nature of the Owl Moon Lab and its potential as a portal. A paranormal hotspot with a wide range of unusual events constantly occurring in a single geographical location. All pointing to the emerging idea that most paranormal phenomena are part of a connected otherworldly landscape. In this case, Bigfoot, ghosts, voices from the other side, EVPs and unexplained sounds coming from an otherwise normal shed.
I heard that small crack.
What we constantly heard from paranormal Bigfoot investigators was, expect the unexpected.
What we're starting to find is that there are power spots. There are places where things happen much more frequently than the rest of these places. It appears that there are places throughout the earth where energy is focused. people describe them differently. Ley lines, vortexes, even black holes are considered to be one of these places where energy is concentrated. What we're finding, I think, is that these places exist on the surface of the Earth. And if you put yourself in these places, if you can first identify these places and then put yourself in them, things happen with a lot more regularity, and things happen a lot more dramatically. So as much as anything, we're just going around trying to find these power spots, trying to find these vortexes, wormholes, whatever you want to call them, and then see what's going on there that we can hopefully begin to understand.
So what is going on here? The evidence is growing stronger, and perhaps governments already know full well that we are not alone here in our solar system, that we are moving towards an alien contact singularity that will change everything we believe about ourselves and our place in the world. Perhaps all you have to do is open your mind to your own personal alien or Bigfoot awakening, and they will find you. After all, it's their game we are playing.